to move this way.
No,
It has to be this, and it has to be that. There's nothing you can change.
No.
But we say no, and it has to move for you because
Right.
that's what's going to make it work for you.
Right.
the individual.
Now at this point, it's hard for me to even do the sombrado drill without moving my feet, even in the slightest, just because I understand where I can draw power, where I can draw flexibility, where I want to go next after that, to make sure that I'm not getting hurt. Doesn't work all the time though.
That, and again, it goes back to really how Danny has changed things and said, look,
Oh, yeah.
the individual student isn't going to be able to understand the things that are being taught unless it's broken down to the way they think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, and that's why we take our time with the students
Oh yeah.
and really get where they're at. Danny asks a bunch of questions. Even when we get to a point where we're starting to teach them something, we're still asking questions.
Yeah. So what do you think? What did you take away from it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a really big marker in how an instructor can gauge where the student is. Because you can ask a student and they'll tell you, oh yeah, no, this, and this, and they just repeat to you the physical process. They're like, oh yeah, I learned 1 in 11, or I learned this sombrado drill. Okay, you missed the whole lesson completely. Let me try to get back you. Let me put you back on track with whatever instructions I need to give, or different lesson that I need to show you, just to get that point across that it's not the physical aspect of it.
Right. You know, one of the things that we always talk about is verbiage.
Verbiage. Big part.
Verbiage
Big,
is such a big thing because you say the wrong word
Right.
in the wrong context, they'll never get it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you almost have to go hunting for that word to make sure you're getting the right word that meshes with this individual.
And I think all three of us, Danny, yourself, and I, have done this at one point or another. We're in the middle of giving an instruction or talk about a topic, and we'll just stop talking and we're doing this. The right word is
Yeah, and it does make a big difference.
It really does. It really does. Even as simple, it just reminded me early in our classes. We don't worry about the opponent.
Right.
Okay, well, why wouldn't we? They're attacking us. Okay, because we don't want you to panic. We don't want you to feel flustered. We don't want you to feel all these things that are going to stop you from doing what
The old, oh shit, what's he gonna do? What's he
exactly,
gonna do?
exactly. So
shit.
that verbiage made such a big thing for me. I was like, then what should be? Well, you should be aware of what your opponent is doing.
We need to know what they're doing.
Of course, they're trying to hit you, but you don't worry about it. So you foster this mentality from the very get-go to be thoughtful of what's happening in a calm, relaxed state.
Right.
And each person is going to pick that up at their level, at their speed, and you have to be aware of that as an instructor. You have to pay attention to the students that need it. And I think it happens, the students that grow too fast, the teachers give them more attention.
Right.
When it should be the other way around. The ones that are going
Yeah,
faster,
yeah, that's
hey,
the
help
thing.
me teach that guy to get to your level.
And it's cool that you said that because what do I always do? I'll always take a student who is, really good or has learned faster, and I make them teach.
Oh yeah.
Right? I say, oh, go teach them to do, 1 in 11.
Help them.
Go over there and what do we always get back in return? When that student comes back after teaching somebody, they always come back and say, I just learned something new. Just from teaching somebody.
Yes.
Because they realized they were doing something maybe wrong or their idea of it was bad. But when they had to slow down and actually teach somebody it,
Level 4.
yeah. And then they become, oh, I just learned a new thing by teaching somebody else.
And the best part about it is that they're not so much that they learn something new about the drill or the lesson, they learn something new about themselves.
Right.
And that makes a huge
that's
difference.
the growth that we're always.
That's the expanding part.
Yeah.
Yes.
I got that from you when I was teaching you. It took a while. 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
I can say that because it's true.
It is.
No, I think it's Danny has really taken something and giving the individual an identity to themselves.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
No, yes. You made a comment earlier about Lego pieces and how everyone builds their own thing. When you keep a lesson so simple, then it is up to the student to take it anywhere further and put it together however they want. But when you give them a structured idea that it has to be done this way, every single time, where's the personal growth?
Right. It becomes mimicking.
That's just copying.
Yeah.
And you see it. You see one person and you're like, oh yeah, they're all from the same school because they move the same way. And again, that's a traditional way of teaching, and if that's what you want to learn, that's what you want to learn.
Yeah.
But
And nothing wrong with that.
nothing wrong with that. But for me, it wouldn't work just because I question everything. I've questioned this man left and right, usually to my own detriment because I end up on the floor or in pain. But I question you.
Yeah.
And that's my
And that's what we're
personal
looking-
nature.
Yeah. And to us, that's the best student. The person who's going to ask those questions and try to, figure out why or the what.
Respectfully.
Yeah.
It's not that I stopped the middle of the class and said, no, that's bullshit, show me. None of that, no. It's more along the lines like, I get what you're saying, but I'm not quite a believer just yet.
Right.
Show me more. And then I fall down or I get hurt, and then it's like, oh, I totally believe it now. So, pain is definitely a
Great teacher.
a great teacher. And that's just my way of learning. I'm kind of hard-headed, and we have other students that are exceptional. They get the concept, and with very little explanation, they're showing that they understand what they're doing.
Right.
Even
And
better.
one such student is Risa.
Risa, yeah, I wasn't sure if I want to say her name,
When
but-
she first started, she came in as a powerlifter.
yeah,
And then,
but super meek, super
yeah.
just kind of scared of the world. I'm here from far away on my own, and now she walks with such confidence. It's
Oh, yeah. She's awesome.
beautiful transformation.
She is willing to go up against men in tournaments. And
Yeah.
And I always admired
And
that.
hold her own. Yeah.
Yeah, she's really gotten her own identity.
She definitely has.
She's changed that much that she walks around with her head held high and doesn't care to look back at the old Risa.
Yeah,
and
and-
I admire that.
Half the time of other students who shall go and not name. Really,
Yeah.
in a short period of time, she's grown
Yeah.
so much because of the way she understands, because of
Right.
her own personality, and that's how we've taken away from that.
And it really goes to show that each individual student is individual. And there's no taking that away. Whereas you hear of other places where they become almost robotic. and
Right, they're
everybody
told
has
you can't
cookie
even go
cutter.
outside of what you're learning.
You go cookie cutter,
Yeah.
and it's amazing how if they were allowed to grow, they could be so much more.
So much more.
I-
And again, it's not that they're not
And
great.
again,
at what
and
they
I
do.
don't. Let me put a disclaimer out there now that I don't know if that's really the way it is, but it's
Right.
what I see.
We've seen specific examples of it, and there's no way we're going to judge everyone based on a few bad apples.
Yeah.
But it's just what we've seen in comparison and contrast
Right.
to the way we teach. And that's the only reason why we bring it up, is because we have seen these things, and we're not just making things up. We've heard some pretty bad stories from people, and
Right.
that we respect,
Yeah.
that are
definitely.
high up in what they do, but even themselves, they see that there's a limitation. Not that there's something wrong. I think it's better to call it a limitation in their own growth.
Yeah.
Because of the way it was
Well,
taught.
you almost feel like they're stunted that growth.
Right.
Because they're not allowed to explore
Right.
as readily as, and maybe they do it later on, in years later on, but we tend to do it right away.
Right.
So-
Didn't we even heard a story of a black belt who her teacher was giving her the school because he had nothing left to teach her.
Right.
And
yeah.
he was done with teaching because he's like, I have nothing else to teach. And now she's like, well, what am I going to teach these kids? Because she does have some students that are exceptionally, aptitude for whatever she teaches, and they're just growing so fast. And she's,
Now
what do I teach them now?
Yeah.
But you, and I've said this before, I could probably, the way I am now and the skill set that I have now, I could take the you of 6 years ago.
Yeah.
If you were still the same fighter you were 6 years ago, I could take you.
Okay. Good for you.
The point
I like
is,
it, yes.
is that you've grown along with me.
Yeah, and that's the thing, if you don't grow throughout your training, then you got to question, why are you doing this? Why are you here? If you're okay with staying where you're at, and that's your plateau, um, then I question why. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Why? But because we give the students the ability to constantly learn and keep learning, and then teach it,
And
so you
want
can
to
learn
learn.
more and want to learn, that they grow the way they grow. You know, yeah, it makes for an interesting dynamics with student teacher relationship,
Right.
because you get to be both at the same time.
You really do.
You know.
Like there's, I've come to the conclusion that there is no possible way to grow beyond a certain point without being a student.
Right.
And that seems seems funny to say out loud, but if you're not constantly questioning what you understand personally,
Right.
then you're not growing. You're just repeating the things over and over again, and you've seen it. You've seen grandmasters that are just tired of giving the same lesson over and over
Yeah,
again.
and I'm sure it wears on them.
It-
I mean, you can see some of these guys, and in some of those bad schools,
Mhm.
you can really see. I mean, you know, these pop-up karate schools
Oh yeah.
who say, oh, you know, give us this much money and you'll
We'll
make you a black belt in 6 months, and it's like, wait a minute, you know.
Where's
Yeah.
that doesn't seem right.
Is that even possible? To what extent is that black belt?
Right, and that's a disservice to the student, because now you have the student that, oh, I'm a black belt, but
But they're not.
you haven't, really grown beyond the white belt.
Yeah, and that's scary.
It really is. It really is. And to try to stay away from that, and really, you have to remember why you do what you do.
Right. And that's the first question that we will always ask. Why do you want to be here? What are you doing this for? And without getting that, if you're just in it to take the money and say, okay, it's this much a month, we'll see you tomorrow.
And again, and nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
We
I mean,
live in a
it's their
capitalist
livelihood.
country. It's livelihood.
Yeah.
Get your money. Never mad at anyone like that. But
You got to question it. Still.
for us, it's different. Well, because that's how we were taught, and then that's what Daniel created, is this environment where it's okay to question things. It's
Right.
okay to ask why. And he took it a step further and begins with the why.
Right. That is our class.
That's the class. That's how we get the points across. And you keep it simple, keep it short, adapt to the student as you, and you will grow just as much as the student is.
I think so. That's, again, we're not doing any kind of bashing. I mean,
No.
everybody should do what they do. I
Yeah,
mean,
to
the
each their
level-
own.
Yeah, to each their own. But as far as what we see and what we do for our students, we want to make sure that they're going to get the most out of the training. Right. And if it involves them having to really explore themselves and to become better than they could ever be, then yes, we definitely do that. But we also have those times when we do kind of walk them through things and get them to really, understand the way they need to understand. And then in that growth, we start to change how they then,
How they process information.
because then, and that's all becomes part of it.
Right.
You got to take each individual
Yeah.
at face value. Say, okay, this person might need a little bit more of this and less of that, whatever. But as an instructor, you have to
You have to balance that.
Yeah, you have to look at this and say, where is that balance for this particular
Right.
person? Because if you don't do that, then you are doing a disservice to that individual.
Right, and then you get stuck in your ways, and then you just find yourself repeating yourself over and over and over again without any actual growth.
Right. So, what else you got for me today? What other fascinating things we could discuss or have a conversation
A
about?
conversation. I was actually thinking about earlier, focus.
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 Okay.
We just did a demonstration of the sombrado drill.
Right.
And we made a few points in reference to how we go about teaching it, and it's, to me, it boils down to the idea of focus.
Focus. Okay. This I want to hear.
Okay.
I'm just as curious as you guys.
So I'm a driver by profession. I drive a giant bus, 45-foot bus. So I have to keep a lot of focus. But I can't focus on any one particular thing for too long,
Right.
because it becomes detrimental. And in a fight, like you say, you have to see everything.
Yes.
right? So you can't focus on any one idea. Oh, is he gonna punch? Is he gonna punch? And then you get a kick.
Right.
So the way that I've realized that you guys have kind of put me in this track of thought is that we change the focus of any given drill at any given cycle. Even within the same class, we cycle it 2-3 times. Every cycle, the focus changes.
Okay.
All right? We focus on hand placement at one point. Again, the first level of understanding the physical stuff. Hand placement. Positioning yourself against your opponent.
Right.
And then as things grow and evolve, that hand placement becomes, manipulation of joints.
Right.
Oh, this could be a grab. This could be a hook. This could be a break.
All right, so let's backtrack that because I see what you're getting at.
Oh.
And the idea of focusing is Danny's way of saying learning a skill set within any given drill because you're focusing on this one thing first. So if we go through our cycle again, right? Let's go back to the cycle, right?
Right.
In a simple cycle, sombrata, right? Here, this is, well, on the next volley, I'm going to try something different. Okay, so, instead of going with the stick first, I went with maybe with the puño. But now I understand that when I do that puño, go back, I have to come in then. So the focus then becomes,
How do you
at
use
what
that?
point, how do I use this piece as opposed to this piece?
Right.
And what do I have to understand about that? Then I then have to realize, okay, for me to get this in here, I'm going to get hurt here. So that means something has to happen. Something has to change. So now the focus becomes that. Oh, there's a footwork that has to be involved. That has to come into play. So I'm focusing on the next thing. So as I cycle through these things, well, the next cycle will then be maybe, if we're doing this, okay, cycle. Oh! Ooh. I wanted to do a watik this time.
Yeah, how do you use your abanico in it?
So all these things, as I go along to this cycling, right, I start to understand my focus has to change to whatever I want to do for the next cycle of this sombrata drill. And again, that's what we say, we take the drills apart, we deconstruct, and we put them back to what we're trying to work on for that moment. And Danny calls that learning a skill set.
Right, learning a skill set, breaking it apart, figuring out how you can do whatever it is you want to do
Right.
within the construct of something that is structured, because it's a drill. They're structured. You know that it's coming, but if you can understand how to use it on the fly, then it's more likely that you'll use it in a chaotic situation, which would be a fight.
Right, and that's, and Danny, he grew this thing, he would explain it like this. He'd say, you have a structured drill, and then you have an unstructured drill. But to be able to bounce in and out of those two particular drills is where you really learn a lot of stuff.
Right. He breaks it down even further to, we go structured, we do a drill, and we follow it to the T. And we do structured, unstructured, where we learn several drills, and now within one drill, we bounce to another drill. We bounce to another drill. But we still keep the drill, each drill, as it was intended to be done. Eventually you get to unstructured, and that's when you're just throwing stuff out there, but you're recognizing when you can use those individual pieces that you broke down and understood.
This I want to see. Because we're going to get that. And bear with us. We're just going to do working on two.
Right.
We have two structured drills. One is called the sombrata, and then the other is a thrust spot. And first we're going to do it structured, right? This is a structured drill because we're just doing the regular drill. So that's one. Thrust 5 is this. Whoop. Right? So these are two structured drills. Now, the moment we bring them two together, it would be structured. Unstructured, right?
We're now breaking away from the
this
original drill.
We go from the first one, then we go into the next drill,
At any point,
then we go back
to the
to
original.
the structured drill. So at any given time, then eventually it becomes a structured whoever wants to do whatever they want. And then it becomes whatever it needs to become. And in learning in that process, then you start to see things and recognize not just a drill, but any particular angle of attack. And that was the intention of learning structured, unstructured.
The first level.
The first level of...
Which
Yeah.
is still gross motion.
Right.
Because eventually then you start adding the idea of, oh, okay, what energies am I feeling? Am I going to deflect this? Am I just going to crash into this? Am I
Right.
going to flow with it? You know, am I going to bisect whatever they're doing? Because now I understand, oh, their hand is raised, they're going to come down. Well, I'm just going to go straight out. And you start developing your own mentality.
Right.
Because now you realize, just like driving, you're not focused on any one individual thing that gets you there safely. You're focused on getting there safely.
Right.
And that's your major focus. But within that, there are all these components that need to happen for that to be achieved. Same thing with the fight.
Right.
In order for you to get out of there safely, that should be your only focus. But all the things that are required for you to achieve that, you break down in your drills.
Right.
And the way that you do that is by giving different focuses to different ideas. So then you can put it all together for yourself when you need it.
Because, again, in a drill atmosphere, a thing that really never happens in a real fight.
Right.
Now you're able to, because you're able to bounce around within those drills and take pieces, the Lego pieces that we keep talking about. I can throw this piece into that, this piece into that, and whatever else I need to do. And this is, again, how we interpret.
Right. The simplicity that Danny created for us to explore this.
Right.
And then that's what really, has been on my mind all day, is this idea of focus. How does just the shift of focus using proper verbiage
Right.
can yield so many different results and not necessarily change with the things that you know
No,
or do.
and again, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel.
No, not
that's,
at all.
That's the key element here, is that we keep everything the same. Everybody has all the same tools. We all have abanicos. We all have what these. We have drills, Sagrada, whatever.
Everything. Everyone has it.
Everybody has them.
Right.
And you call it differently for whatever.
Well, yeah, it's your,
It's
lineage
just the
or
way you
whatever
branded it.
Right.
But again, they're all basically the same tool that everybody is using. Now, if you can learn to break away from set stuff, structured drills, then you're always just flowing.
Right.
And flowing is an awesome way to go, because it doesn't matter what your opponent does at any given time.
Right, you just do.
You're just going to do it. Yeah. Well, that's enough time for today. I think we've already been
Thank
a
you,
half
folks.
hour.
Maybe.
We'll see you guys next time on Colleague Conversations with me, Rick.
And me, Nain.
And you guys have a wonderful day. See you
All right,
next time.
see you guys later.
And break.